Good afternoon, I'm Ed Pozzuoli, CEO of Tripp Scott, and today we're going to talk about the construction industry in South Florida. And with me today is my law partner, Bill Davell. Bill, welcome.
Good to be with you today, Ed.
So Bill, this coronavirus pandemic has had a real impact on South Florida's economy, but what's been the impact on the construction industry specifically?
Well, the construction industry was basically blessed because they were deemed to be an essential business, so they weren't shut down. So some of our clients have reported that they're, although they have various steps that they have to go through, that they're very busy. But we've heard from other clients, particularly those that are on the front line needing permits, that the permitting has really caused an impact on their business, the failure or the inability to get permits.
And both city, county, and otherwise?
Across the board.
Is that impacting the timing of delivery of projects or
Well,
milestones?
they have projects that they had on the books that they were moving forward with, had manned up on, but are unable to get the permits so that they can continue or do the work.
With respect to the construction industry, are they making any accommodations with masks on the job site? Well, some of that's natural.
Yeah, from a practical perspective, what we've seen is that it's almost city by city, and some of the construction organizations have been on top of that, keeping their members apprised, but sometimes it's changed on a day-to-day basis. For example, in Miami, exterior construction and interior construction has been moving along on projects that are already permitted. However, in Miami, they have been policing projects to make sure that social distancing requirements have been adhered to and that they're wearing masks. We know that on at least 2 projects now in Miami have been shut down because of social distancing issues.
Wow.
Now that differs in Fort Lauderdale. They have been policing projects as well, but interior projects on occupied dwellings in Fort Lauderdale have been shut down unless they are necessary repairs because they've deemed that to be too dangerous, even with masks.
But exterior projects?
They're ongoing in Fort Lauderdale.
And are they policing in the same way Miami is?
I don't think it's as strict in Fort Lauderdale, but they are policing.
Okay. And talk to me a little bit about how does that impact on some of the contracts that you have between a general contractor and an owner, or a general contractor and his subs? We've
had a lot of calls, and we've been reviewing a lot of contracts. The terms of those contracts vary, and it hasn't been very often that contractors have had to look to certain terms in contracts like the force majeure clause.
Right.
The purpose of that clause is to delineate certain listed impossibilities that would relieve the parties from their obligations under the contract. In Florida, the force majeure clauses have been interpreted very narrowly, though. So if you don't have a circumstance that's listed, the courts have not allowed that to be a circumstance that allows you out of your contract responsibilities.
But Bill, no one has in their contract listed a pandemic, does it?
No, they don't have listed as a pandemic, and that's why on the good side in Florida, what we have going for us is that we still have, our courts still recognize in Florida the common law impossibility of performance. And that is based on the issue of unforeseeability, and that's where the pandemic comes in. The good part about the force majeure clause, though, is that most of the contracts have provisions on what is the effect if a listed item in a force majeure clause arises. Then there's a contractual provision on what is the effect. Excused, is there compensation for demobilization? We don't have those contract provisions that go along with unforeseen circumstances that bring us in under the common law. But we do have a common law provision that allows contractors, subcontractors, and out if they're shut down.
And as a practical matter, are owners and contractors trying to work together to work through the delays and the associated problems that are being caused by the pandemic?
Our experience is that they are. We've also had reported to us that there are owners that with projects on the books that haven't been contracts signed for yet, that those owners are really pushing forward They want to get these projects under contract. And so that's a good thing for the construction industry.
So really what you're saying is, in large part, the construction industry has yet to be impacted. I mean, maybe in some of the means and methods about the way they handle a job site with masks and some provisions around that, and some aspects are impacted. And if they're waiting on a permit from a governmental entity, that's impacted clearly.
Right.
But do you see that changing in the next 90, 180 days?
If owners continue to contract for new projects, we don't see it changing except for the government issue, and that is the permitting issue, the inspection issue.
Are there any other regulatory issues around the permitting or any construction impacting on construction?
No.
Okay, so it's really just around the permitting and inspections.
Right, and the contractors and the subs, are being very protective of their employees.
In large projects, can contractors and owners contract those inspections to private inspectors?
They can, in some respects, contract with those private inspectors. We already have that in a lot of the large projects.
Right.
But that doesn't help us with what's going on in the government office, because we still have to get through the paperwork in the government office on these projects.
So what other things should the construction industry players be thinking about as we get through this pandemic, and what does the future of the South Florida construction environment look like?
I think one of the things that the contractors and subs need to be very careful about is documenting the impact directly related to this pandemic. Because if there are claims that are going to be made, they need to be carefully documented.
Right.
What our clients have been instructed to do, and what they are already doing for the protection of their employees, is staying on top of the local regulations so they don't get shut down, and being very careful with the distancing, with the masks, and any other requirements that are put upon them.
So basically, some of the calls you've been getting is in keeping up with whatever new regulatory issue is coming down on how an individual city or county is handling the pandemic.
Exactly, because those are changing weekly, sometimes twice a week.
And so overall, the industry is still healthy.
Still healthy.
And the future's still bright.
It's very bright in South Florida.
But we need help on the regulatory and the permitting side.
Absolutely.
Bill, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Ed.
Appreciate it.